we have a look at Aerondight from The Witcher.
This is the Kitsune clan, a group of sword enthusiasts who like cosplay, reenactment, and historical martial arts. If you have similar interests, feel welcomed.
Aerondight from The Witcher Wild Hunt is an unusual sword, and you could think that's just because it's a fantasy weapon. Yet in history, we have also strange swords, and Aerondight somehow fits to some of these. And this especially concerns the pommel, because some pommels in historical books look spiky and edgy. A comfortable pommel is round and smooth so that I can move my sword properly. Yet in Aerondight we have four stylized wolf heads that extend like flanges from the pommel, hindering its normal use. Well, let's be precise. It's normal two-handed use. For a one-handed use, the pommel is fine because it counters the weight of the blade and we can swing it around as we would any other sword. So we can use shield block or we can use roof block and follow with a Zwerchhaus or rotational strike. Easily with this weapon, works perfectly. We can also return the blade when we get attacked, so we can use Shielhau and continue from that position very nicely. The crossguard arms are a bit forward inclined, so kind of forming quillons, and we can try to use that for disarming. For angle 1, the one circle, works quite okay. The crossguard catches the blade of the opponent nicely. For angle 2, so a 1 cross, it doesn't look so good. The quillons are simply too open to deeply catch and fix the blade. We could use the left hand to perform the disarming, but then it's not really guided by the crossguard. Moving to angle 3, a 2 circle can work. It doesn't work always, but sometimes it's really astonishing, as look here, my dear wife hit me with my own tip right at my neck. Therefore, it clearly gets the label well possible if conditions are right. So far for the crossguard at the moment. We'll look a bit deeper into it later. Now let's look at the Ricasso. It has a kind of protrusion, and this can in fact protect your hand when you grab around the Ricasso. A downsliding blade gets redirected, allowing us to securely grip there. Now there's enough space for the left hand or the offhand, however you want to call it, to place it in front of the pommel and to wage this sword in a normal two-handed way. It is not uncommon to grip in front of the crossguard of a sword. A lot of swords have a special ricasso there, or even additional protection devices like this one in fact has. We cannot be sure whether this was intended like that, but at least it is functional in this way. Another way to grab the sword with two hands is to have the right hand behind the crossguard and use the left hand in half sword. Here comes now in the pommel with this flange-like protrusions. It's a bit like a mace, and we can strike with it in half sword position. This is in fact even stronger if we do the half sword with the right hand at the ricasso instead of the handle, because then we have a longer leverage for this mace-like pommel. This may appear a bit unusual at first, both hands at the blade in half sword, but we will just see that in fact the way the crossguard is constructed with these additional spikes provides additional protection if gripped in half sword like that, and we can use now the crossguard to catch the blade of the opponent and perform a half sword strike. But you might have guessed already, this is not yet the end. If we have a strange pommel, this pommel screams for using Mordschlag or Mordshau. And as the flanges are all around the pommel, we can safely grasp from the flat side and strike with the flanges off axis. In my view, this is even better than with these specialized swords shown in the Talhoffer books, where the protruding structures are in the axis, which means you have to grasp the sharper sides of the blade. As pointed out, the pommel really looks like a mace, so why not use it in this way? Another suggested use of the Mordshau is hooking at the neck. And that's also nicely done with Aerondight, again due to these nice little spikes that really get dragged into the skin. So it's nicely possible to hook in and pull. Of course, pulling on something that is sharp is a thing that you should really tightly consider whether you want to do it. So every structure that helps in performing pain to the opponent is welcome. So the spikes are really useful here. If you finally got a bit more comfortable with the hooking thing, you can try more complex hooks. Like here, deflecting already in Mordshau and then hooking under the arm of the opponent at the neck, either for destabilizing the opponent or for disarming. This can be performed on both sides, so once with the right hand on the blade, then we get a figure 4 type, kind of onikudaki, or with the left hand remaining on the blade, then we get a chicken wing type or Nelson type resulting technique, so something like a variation of okyaku. We can look again at the spikes on the lower side of the crossguard. If we are in Mordshau and want to deflect in this position, these spikes can prohibit the blade of the opponent sliding off the crossguard. Of course, afterwards we displace the sword of the opponent and then we can strike, preferably with the pommel or also with the crossguard. So, overall, Aerondight might appear a bit strange and unusual when looking at it at first or when holding it in hands, but if we use techniques such as described in the Talhoffer books, we can make use of it. And this is especially true in half-sword and in Mordshau. It's still unclear whether the swords depicted in Talhoffer really existed like that, and it's not easy to get a training weapon that looks like that. Aerondight could be a substitute for those interested in training that stuff. So that would be a good question for the designer of this sword. Did he or she know about the Talhoffer swords? And did he or she have something like that in mind? Does any one of you have contact to these persons? Maybe we can solve this riddle at a certain point. In any case, if you are interested in buying an unusual training sword, this is definitely one that is worth it. Aerondight is again maybe a case of a fantasy sword where you would take it in your hand and think at first, oh, that's a pretty strange or even useless sword. But if you look at its mechanics, it can make sense if used in a not so standard way. At least if you not consider Mordshau one of the standard uses. Hope it could inspire you. See you around next time.